If you've ever seen Hercules, you might remember the Hydra. You know, that terrifying nine-headed serpent created by Hades himself. Thankfully, the Hydra isn't real, but there are some unbelievably unique snakes out there that are. From a milk snake born with two heads to a serpent that can fly, let's take a fantastic tour of some of the rarest snakes in the world. Blue and beautiful. Feeling blue might mean feeling sad amongst humans, but I bet it has a whole different meaning if you're a pit viper. That's because blue pit vipers are some of the rarest and most stunning snakes of them all. Don't get me wrong, other similarly beautiful blue snakes exist, like the striking blue Malayan, but they're supposed to be blue. Pit vipers, on the other hand, are almost always green, whilst ones with the blue gene are only found in a few select places, like Komodo Island in Indonesia. And they're not to be messed with. Pit vipers are highly venomous, and one bite can cause severe pain, numbness, and even trouble breathing. So they're a real danger on the streets of Bali, where they've been known to unexpectedly sneak up on locals. As beautiful as this snake is then, it's a real look but don't touch situation, which means I'm certainly not jealous of whoever's holding that rose. Rainbow reptile. If I say the word rainbow, you might think of leprechauns and their elusive pot of gold. Just as elusive, however, is the South Florida rainbow snake. Natives of, South Florida, rainbow snakes are so rare they were officially declared extinct. Luckily for them, though, and us, this was proven not to be the case back in 2020, when one was spotted in Florida for the first time in over 50 years. And the woman that found it must have been amazed. The spectacular serpents are a sight to behold, donning smooth, glossy, bluish-black scales topped with 3 red stripes. Their beautiful skin more than earns them their name. Plus, they're harmless to humans, so you can get real up close for a look. Because of habitat loss, however, numbers left alive today are sadly next to none. So spare a thought for the rainbow snake, and if you see one, you never know. Maybe that pot of gold will shortly follow. I can't promise you a pot of gold, but if you slither on down to those like and subscribe buttons, I can promise you'll never miss out on any of my new, incredible content. Go on, give them a click. All done? Okay, where were we? Celebrity snake. I've already shown you one kind of rainbow snake, but guess what? There's another. And this one is even rarer. Meet my love, a reticulated python with such an incredible coat of rainbow scales that she went viral. Reticulated pythons themselves aren't rare, but my love was born with a unique cross of 2 genes, the motley gene, which lengthens the circles on her coat, and the golden child gene, which gives her scales that stunning shimmer. Even if you buy a snake with the exact same genes, it's very unlikely it'll look this amazingly iridescent. So she's really one of a kind, and the effect is mesmerizing. You see, when light hits the snake's special scales, their bumpy texture makes it refract and bounce between them, separating into 2 different colors and giving the appearance of a rainbow. Plus, reticulated pythons are the largest snakes in the world, so there's a hell of a lot of those crazy scales to be gopping at. Up to a whopping 20 feet of them, in fact, which is like lying your dad on the floor lengthwise 3.5 times. All that snake comes with a pretty hefty price tag, though. You're looking at splashing $1,000 if you can find one at all. But if that's still not enough to put you off the idea, there's also the tiny fact that they've been known to swallow humans whole. Yikes. I think I'll stick to going to the zoo, thanks. Snake Island. If I told you I was going on vacation to a hot Brazilian island, you'd be pretty jealous, right? But what if I told you that this island is also home to one of the world's rarest and deadliest snakes? Its name? The golden lancehead. Golden lanceheads are a lethal snake species so rare that they're only found in one place in the entire world, Snake Island, a tiny speck of land off the coast of Sao Paulo in Brazil. When rising sea levels separated the island from the mainland around 11,000 years ago, the snakes on the island ended up evolving very differently from their mainland relatives. Most of the time, snakes stalk their prey, bite, and wait for the venom to do its work before hunting down the prey again. But on Snake Island, the only prey that survived being separated from the mainland were birds, which snakes can't track because they fly. So, only the snakes with the strongest venom capable of instantly killing the birds survived. Now, golden lancehead's venom is a flesh-melting 3 to 5 times stronger than any of the mainland snakes. And that's no exaggeration. One bite will literally melt human flesh and can cause death in less than an hour. So, all in all, I think I'll find somewhere else for vacation. Freaks of nature. Okay, so we've seen some pretty rare snakes so far, but now let's take a look at some that are so rare they shouldn't even exist. Like this guy. Whoa, what? Relax, it's not a hydra, but rather the result of a super rare condition that any species can get, called bicephaly, literally meaning 2 heads. In fact, it's so rare that it only affects around 1 in 100,000 births in the wild, making 2-headed snakes mega valuable to reptile enthusiasts. This fella went on sale for a whopping $50,000 back in 2013. But how does it actually happen? Well, all animals start out as tiny embryos before they're born. Sometimes an embryo splits in 2 and creates 2 identical embryos with the same genetic information, twins. However, in the case of that 2-headed snake, the embryo only partially split, meaning 2 embryos developed that were physically connected. Unfortunately, 2 heads aren't really better than 1 head. The life expectancy of 2-headed snakes is much shorter than normal. And if one head catches the scent of prey on the other, it could even attack or try to swallow it. If you think having 2 heads is tough though, try having 3 eyes. That's right, a python found on a highway in northern Australia was born with a truly one-of-a-kind mutation, a 3rd eye. Far from being all-seeing though, the eye caused the snake feeding difficulties and ultimately resulted in its untimely death. Man, I guess omniscience isn't everything. Devil in disguise. You might have heard that the devil wears Prada, but this devil prefers a skin of sandy scales. Okay, it's not actually a devil, but with those pointy horns, the Saharan horned viper is definitely devilish looking. You don't see horns very often on snakes, but they aren't a weapon or anything. They're likely there to help protect its eyes from the gritty desert sands of North Africa and the Middle East. Some speculate that the scaly protrusions may help keep wind-borne sand grains out of their eyes when the snake is lying incognito at the sand's surface, allowing them to better see prey and predator alike. Others, meanwhile, suggest the horns help break up the snake's silhouette, improving its camouflage. But whatever their true purpose, the snake's horns aren't its most interesting feature. Far from it. Saharan horned vipers are one of the fastest snakes in the world and can rocket around at up to 18 miles per hour. They do this through a special movement called sidewinding, where they throw their body forward in repeated S-curves. What's more, when their scales rub against one another, they make a sound like the repeating letter F. Take a listen. It's so distinctive that the ancient Egyptians even wrote the hieroglyph for the letter F in the form of a horned viper. Pretty cool, right? Turns out snakes don't always go tss. Sometimes they go th. Snow white serpents. We've already seen that when it comes to snakes, mutations can make pretty much anything happen. 2 heads? Sure. 3 eyes? Whatever. This albino cobra, though, is altogether different. The reason it looks like a paint by numbers before it's been painted is down to a condition called albinism. Normally, snake skins have melanin in them, which is a pigment that gives them their color. It's the same thing that makes your hair blonde or brunette. However, snakes with albinism have a faulty gene, meaning they don't produce any melanin, so lack any coloring. It may look pretty cool, but for the snakes, it's not so fun. Without colors, albino snakes have no means for camouflage, so that pearly white skin exposes them to predators and makes it more difficult for them to hunt their prey undetected. Because of this, some experts reckon albino cobras are among the 10 rarest albino animals in the world. And that's a title I'm sure they really don't want. Flying fiends. Diving, or should I say flying, right into the next one, let's have a look at the paradise flying snake. No, I'm not pulling your leg. These Southeast Asian snakes really do fly, or at least fall with style. Unlike any other snake, these guys slither up trees or surfaces before slinging themselves from the top in what may look like snaky suicide. But before jumping, the snakes use their ribs to stretch themselves into a flattened ribbon, so that after they've sprung into the air, the aerodynamic shape keeps them lifted. Then, by wiggling their bodies from side to side in an S shape, they stabilize themselves and can glide even further. Scientists are still unsure why flying snakes evolved to glide, but it's likely that they use these airborne antics to evade predators. After all, if they're gliding from tree to tree all the time, they're unlikely to bump into a hungry mongoose on the ground below. It also means, though, that they're one of the least documented snakes on the planet. You try getting good footage of something known for flinging itself off trees. So, while they're not exactly rare, they're incredibly rarely seen, and just too cool not to show you. Suddenly, the phrase, "when pigs fly," doesn't sound so crazy. Scaly and snouted. If I'd showed you this creature in any other video, I bet you wouldn't have said it was a snake. What would you have said it was? A lizard, a dragon? Well, it's actually a Malagasy leaf-nosed snake. In other words, one of the strangest looking serpents alive. Out of almost 4,000 snake species, only 4 have these weird snouts, and oddly enough, they differ dramatically between males and females. The males' noses are long and spiky looking, whereas females are flat and more leaf-shaped. Why they're different, scientists aren't sure, making them as mysterious as they are unique. It's been theorized, however, that the snouts of both genders are leaf-shaped so that the creatures can blend into the vegetation of the Madagascan forests where they live. Ingeniously, they hang from trees, so that to their prey, they look as if they're just seed pods or branches swaying in the wind. Hours might pass like this, but when a frog or small reptile eventually gets near, the snake will spring into action and ferociously snap up its meal. Reminds me a bit of when I'm dozing in front of the TV and suddenly remember I've got a slice of pizza left. Multicolored mysteries. We've seen some pretty beautiful snakes so far. However, if you were to hold a snake beauty pageant, one species would be a surefire favorite for the top spot. I'm talking about the San Francisco garter snake, one of the rarest and most beautiful snakes in the whole of the US, which makes me surprised that there are so many edited pics out there of this beauty. Take that Photoshop magic away and it's still a sight to behold. Sadly, though, less than 2,000 of these wonders remain in the wild due to humans building on their natural habitats. There are other garter snakes, though, like the Californian red-sided garter snake, and thankfully, this one isn't endangered, though it is as remarkably pretty. Like its San Fran's sister, it's often photoshopped, but again, it really doesn't need it. Despite their looks, though, these guys are some of the smelliest snakes on the planet. Because of their relatively small size, they can't rely on their fangs to scare off predators. Instead, they defend themselves much like skunks by releasing a powerful musk that stinks like rotten eggs. And it works. Imagine eyeing a really tasty-looking chocolate cake only to get closer and realize it whiffs of poop. I'd be somewhat put off, wouldn't you? Tentacled terrors. Rare doesn't always mean beautiful. In fact, sometimes rare can mean just plain weird. Like, I don't know, the tentacled snake. This thing lives underwater in the seas of Southeast Asia, and it's the only species of snake in the world to possess, yep, tentacles on its face. Okay, so it's not quite Cthulhu, but if you look at it under an electron microscope, it gets pretty damn close. The tentacles have baffled scientists for years, but recently their true purpose has been discovered. They're super sensitive to underwater movement, capable of sensing even the tiniest vibration. So, by lying in wait and focusing hard, the snakes can strike at a fish with pinpoint accuracy. It's as impressive as it is terrifying. But the sly snakes have another trick up their scales. They anchor themselves onto branches with their tails. This, combined with their bark-like coloration, allows them to assume the guise of a twig, making capturing those unfortunate fish even easier. Oh, to be a tentacled snake, what a life it must be. Elephant trunk snake. If you crossed an elephant's trunk with a snake, you'd get something that looked quite a lot like this, which I guess is why it's called an elephant trunk snake. Duh. Unlike other snakes, this Southeast Asian water dweller has extra loose skin, which gives it that odd wrinkled appearance. But why does it look like it's picked up the wrong size scales at the discount store? Well, the baggy skin is actually pivotal to its smooth underwater movement. The scales don't overlap at all, allowing a much freer range of motion in the water. However, this has the downside of making elephant trunk snakes almost immobile above water. In fact, they're so useless on land that they can cause themselves serious injury. Their bodies can't even support their own weight. Looking at this one, though, I'm not complaining. It can stay underwater, far away from me. Mythical monster. Ready for a beast so unique it looks more mythological than real? Okay, then let's go! This is the aptly named dragon snake, which spends most of its time hiding underground in elusive parts of Southeast Asia. Unlike any other snake, dragon snakes have 3 rows of large dragon-like scales running down their backs. Nobody knows why they have such distinctive skin, but we do know that their scales are keeled, meaning instead of being smooth, they have a long ridge down the center. This reduces the shininess of the snake's bodies and makes it easier for them to camouflage themselves. Others have speculated that due to the dragon snake's tendency to burrow underground, the keeled scales help anchor the creature in place and prevent predators from unearthing them. The mythical-looking beasties aren't just hard to find in the wild, though. They're almost never seen in captivity either. This is because, for reasons we're still unsure of, they hardly ever live for long outside of their natural environment. Not that I was thinking of owning one as a pet or anything. You can call me crazy, but I'm more of a dog kind of guy. A rose among thorns? I can't lie, I'm a sucker for a redhead, which is why if I was a snake, I'd be instantly attracted to the red spitting cobra. I mean, they really stand out from their more boring-looking relatives. Unfortunately for imaginary snake me, though, this snake is one big slithering red flag. That intense red might be amazing to look at, but you really don't want to get anywhere near one of these. Spitting cobras are known to, well, spit. Only, they don't spit phlegm or anything. They spit venom capable of permanently blinding you. Oh, and the venom can fly through the air as far as 9 feet. Oh, and they purposefully aim for your eyes. Okay, snake me wouldn't just have venom to worry about either. Despite cannibalism being rare among snakes, spitting cobras are known to eat their own kind for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Jeez. They say you are what you eat, but this snake seems to have taken that a bit too literally. Secretive serpent. In comparison with a lot of the wacky and wonderful serpents we've seen, you might think this Sri Lankan vine snake looks pretty ordinary. However, it actually has a surprising secret that makes it truly one of a kind. Usually the snake is pure green, so it blends seamlessly with the vines in its lowland forest habitat. When agitated, though, something extraordinary happens. Out of nowhere, it'll rapidly expand its body outwards, revealing a shocking hidden checkerboard pattern. At the same time, it propels its jaws wide open in a stunning threat display designed to shock and scare away the predator. Shock tactics aren't the only thing that make the Sri Lankan vine snake unique, though. Whilst most snakes have eyes that work separately from one another, Sri Lankan vines have special binocular vision, meaning both eyes work together to focus on one thing at a time. This gives them excellent depth perception, much like ours, enabling them to strike their prey with unbelievable accuracy. So unless you're a trained snake handler, I wouldn't advise holding one of these green guys. One bite can be enough to send you straight to the hospital. Green vine snake? More like mean vine snake. Fanged and feathery. Close your eyes and picture a snake. Got one? Great, now open them. I bet what you imagined looked a lot different to this spiky slitherer. It's a spiny bush viper, and its entire body is covered in scales that look more like feathers of an exotic bird than snakeskin. That's because instead of being smooth, they're keeled, similarly to the dragon snakes. Only instead of looking like a dragon, it gives them a bristly, almost bird-like appearance. But the scales aren't just pretty, they're practical too, providing the viper with some incredible camouflage against the trees that it lives in. That's right, trees. With the help of a powerful tail, the spiny bush viper can climb trees found at dizzying altitudes of up to 7,800 feet high. And that tail also proves useful from hanging from branches. Once in position, the viper blends in with the foliage and lies in wait. Then when an unfortunate bird lands nearby, it lunges and strikes with deadly accuracy. Spiny bush vipers aren't the only ones of their kind in the canopies, though. There's another type of bush viper, which may be even more amazing. This is the variable bush viper, which can change color depending on its environment. Yep, just like a chameleon. So they're even better at catching prey. Don't worry though, they probably won't ever attack you. The tropical terrors are only found in the rainforests of West and Central Africa, and considering their venom is potent enough to kill an adult human, I'm just fine with that. Hybrid horror. It's common knowledge that a lot of people are scared of snakes, and I reckon even more are scared of spiders. But what if you combined the two into one horrifying hybrid? Well, let me show you to the source of all your future nightmares, the spider-tailed viper. The what now? Now you heard. So named for its bulbous, spider-shaped tail, this creepy snake can be found prowling the deserts of Iran. Not that you'd be able to find one. They're so elusive that they were only officially recognized as a species in 2006. Scientists used to think that freaky appendage was a tumor caused by a parasite, but now we know it's not that at all, and actually an ingenious trap. You see, when the snake gets hungry, it wiggles the tail back and forth in a creepy, crawly manner to imitate a real desert spider. This grabs the attention of birds flying by who come down to investigate. Then, boom, the snake takes its shot. And put it this way, it doesn't usually end well for the feathered flyers. Talk about getting snaked. Okay then, that's just about all the limbless reptiles I can handle for one day. Which one was your favorite? And are there any rare, fascinating snakes I missed out? Let me know down in the comments below, and thanks for watching.